Well, I'm going to introduce Michael Kearns as our moderator. Michael wears many hats at MEF. He, as you saw with Nan's presentation this morning, he's turning over his LSO committee chair roles to his colleague Mihal. He's been involved with MEF for a long time, extremely active in various areas, including the commercial and business committee. And one of the initiatives, really important initiatives that he led was the onboard and interrupt testing service, both the initial definition of that going back some time, working with a lot of service providers. And then he came over and worked in the test and certification committee. And I was actually chairing it at the time. And we did a ton of heavy lifting to actually build that service, launch it. And it's proving to be extremely successful in terms of the uptake of that. So with that, Michael, I'll let you talk about your panel and take it from here.
Thank you, Kevin. Much appreciated. So I know it's just after lunch, so I'll try to keep the panel lively so everybody doesn't fall asleep here. So the title of the panel is Service Automation and Digital Transformation. We spoke this morning that the members are working together to provide that digital transformation support for the enterprise customers in this better together ecosystem. And MEF, as Pascal talked about in his session this morning, has produced the standards, the frameworks, and all of the tooling and support around that to help make the service providers interconnect, to allow them to use those connected networks and make it seamless and on-demand delivery of the services over those. Today, we're seeing a lot of adoption in terms of the LSO APIs to automate those business functions. This is very critical. If you can't automate the commercial aspects of the engagement between providers, having the technical engagement or the operational engagement isn't going to really work. But we have more than 50 companies, service providers who are committed to LSO Sonata API adoption. This is very, very important step. The panel here that we have today brings together a number of those providers who've implemented the APIs, and also a service provider who is one of the biggest service providers to the communication industry, a solution provider, and Tom from ServiceNow, who's one of the biggest innovators in the industry. So I think we're going to have a very interesting panel. With that in mind, I'd like to turn over to the panelists and ask them to introduce their company and just what they're doing in digital transformation. So I'll start with Tom.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm Tom Schnarr. I'm out of ServiceNow, as we said. So many of you may not know who ServiceNow is, but your customers sure do. So we're deployed at over 7,000 ITSM customers around the globe, representing 50% of the ITSM market. So we've been doing business transformation, digital transformations for your customers for a number of years. We're now helping several leading service providers on that same journey, really building the ecosystem, tying your customers to your technologies, and then into your ecosystem of partners. So looking forward to the panel.
And Mirko.
Yeah, hi everybody. Mirko Oltolini. I run innovation at Colt. We're a global service provider focusing on connectivity. My job is to look at developing capabilities for the future, for the near future. I mean, we've been one of the early adopters of the Sonata API in general, of implementing automation to provide a digital user experience to our customers to consume connectivity services. So that's the focus we have. We help ultimately our enterprise customers to digitally transform, and I think network is a key element of that recipe for transformation.
Very good. And you're one of the first to implement the APIs as well. Very good.
Yeah.
And Laurent, if you can share.
So Laurent Leboucher, so I'm part of Orange. I'm a group CTO within Orange. I lead Orange Innovation Networks, supporting the different countries. In Orange, we have 26 domestic markets, and we are also global players in 200 countries. And of course, we leverage MEF as much as we can, and whenever it's about APIs, I was a strong advocate for already a few years. I remember discussing this topic with Kevin and Pascal some time ago, and I'm glad to see that now adoption is increasing a lot, so it's good. And it's good to be here with you also in person and to feel the vibe. Very good.
Thank you. Daniele?
Thank you, Michael. So Daniele Mancuso, 29 years in the industry, currently serving as Chief Product Management in Sparkle. For those of you that do not know Sparkle very well, we were traditionally a wholesale service provider. From few years, we are really changing our strategy, addressing more and more enterprises' needs. We are happy to see very good results. This year, for the first time, we were included into the Magic Quadrant of Gartner for network connectivity global. I currently have 3 product lines that I am honored to direct. Part of the team is here. We came in forces. We are happy to contribute, and we are happy, as I always say, to receive insights from this great event. So we hope to keep you awake for the next 45 minutes or so.
Thank you, Daniele, very much. So Laurent, the first question for you is, the MEF members are working to address enterprise digital transformation needs by building this better together ecosystem. So what do you believe are the top 2 to 3 transformation challenges and opportunities, and how is your company transforming and collaborating with other companies to address that?
Yes, thank you, Michael. When we talk about the better together ecosystem, and we take, we put ourselves in the shoes of our enterprise customers, I think that we cannot consider connectivity just as a product, a pure product in itself. Connectivity, just for the sake of connectivity, is not enough. It's about, it needs to be extremely easy to consume, extremely easy also to mesh with other products, and especially in cloud ecosystems. So if you think, for instance, we've just announced this year in March our partnership with Fortinet with their SASE solution. We want to bring together and to mesh SASE and SD-WAN. So it's all about being able to play with the different network services, being able also to use them, to consume them in a very developer-centric way, and to integrate them in the IT of our enterprise customers. It's also about simplifying the life of our global customers when they have branches around the world, and they don't want to care about the fact that they have different processes and different operators to deal with the local loop. So when we are able to abstract from that and be able to provide, let's say, a one-stop shop, but not just a portal to do that, also in a way where it's really exposed through APIs. And this is the beauty of our APIs within MEF, and I think it's important that we can really create a momentum.
Very good, thank you. And Daniele, would you have anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, definitely agree with Laurent. I would just add that when an enterprise is starting the digital transformation journey, is really how to transform the way they are interacting with their own customers, which kind of experience they can provide. And therefore, this is reflecting back to us. Today, in the general IT spaces, there are new methodologies, new approaches, infrastructure as a code, things that allow an enterprise, an IT department of an enterprise to instantiate the resources dispersed into cloud, to move applications from place to place. That is not yet the case with our core business, that is the connectivity services. Now, in my opinion, our unique opportunity is to replicate the experience that has been done with these generic technologies, call it infrastructure as a code, to be able to have a connectivity as a code, to integrate into the major workflow systems. Therefore, API automation is something that it's absolutely compulsory for us to achieve. The second thing, in my opinion, is data. Today, everybody, every subject in the world is producing an unbelievable amount of data. Now, these data are a big treasure because data are helping any enterprises everywhere in the planet to understand past experiences, to watch, to observe what is going on today, and maybe to be able to analyze and predict the future. There is not yet a structured way to manage and to deal with this amount of data. Automation is also great in this space. I believe that Sonata API are in general one of the most tremendous things that we have produced as an industry, and they can be useful for connectivity as a service and to shorten this journey, to improve the experience that we have in an end-to-end ecosystem.
It seems like your agility, your ability to be agile is very, very important.
It's
the ability
critical.
to be able to plug and play different partnering pieces together is really critical there. And Mirko, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that as well?
Yeah, picking up from this point, I think I largely agree with maybe some differences on how you approach bringing together. If you look at all these different components, if you look at the digital transformation enterprise space, is quite a complex type of activity. There is typically enterprises are looking at changing processes, changing systems, changing how people operate, and sometimes they go to the extent of changing business model radically. And those projects have typically lots of different technology ingredients. Everybody using cloud, IoT is often part of it, AI, blockchain, you name it, all different technologies. It's quite a complex environment, and networks are an element, are an enabler. If you look at, just back to your question, challenges, opportunities. If you look at network today so far, I would say that it has been a drag. It has not yet fully delivered the opportunity of being really the enabler of this gluing together different technology. We need to turn the behavior of networks to be really part of it rather than being a limitations. I think you hear a lot customers saying, okay, why do I need to wait 90 days for my service to be delivered? Obviously, there is a physical element in delivering connectivity. However, it's taking too much to deliver connections. I think the difference between maybe the approaches Laurent was mentioning, rather than being just a one-stop shop for our customers, we look at leveraging partners, technical partners, other service providers to bring in other elements we don't think we can provide ourselves directly. So it's about creating this ecosystem and bringing everything together to deliver a single user experience.
Very good. That brings us back to the Better Together ecosystem, and Tom is one of the solution vendors. Tom, would you like to talk about that and what?
Absolutely. It's amazing how we can talk about the different layers of abstraction and the need to really simplify. So we recently sponsored a white paper called Intent-Based Network Automation. Really, how do we simplify the complexities of the network? I think if we look at some of the specifications that we have, we've abstracted, but they are very complicated. It's very complicated for our customers to understand. We can build some layers of abstraction. There's lots of standards like network as a service or X as a service that provides some of that abstraction. And I think that's going to be one of the key areas that we in the industry need to really focus on, is how do we make it easier for the customers to buy from us? Pascal made the comment earlier about the SLA is really the contract. Customer doesn't need to know all the technical details. We need to sell an SLA to that customer, and how we deliver that SLA to the customer is abstracted from them. We have that decision. We can do it in-house. We can call through the LSO APIs, through Sonata to our partner, but we want to simplify that experience to the customer and then orchestrate the complexities within the operation through your ecosystem, because your ecosystem really has to be part of your operation. Your challenge then is not just that buying activation scenario, is how do you guarantee that SLA? How do you guarantee a consistent service that you've promised your customer across that complex ecosystem? So, bringing in that full end-to-end service delivery orchestration or lifecycle becomes paramount to the success of the business.
Because you got to look at that whole supply chain. So you might be your service provider that's using that Sonata API to maybe tapping other suppliers downstream, and they may be tapping more suppliers. This can often happen too. And then you're going out to the enterprise because ServiceNow has a big enterprise customer base. I think this is very.
And you have some customers who will be very, very keen. They'll want to know that full ecosystem, and you'll have a choice on volunteering all that data to your customers. Other operators, and I think your preferred model, should be to hide that and just promise that SLA, give the metrics for the SLA, but you want to hide the complexity of how you've delivered it from your business.
So we mentioned earlier that there are more than 50 providers now who are committed to implementing the LSO APIs. That's actually more than 35 companies now based on the latest information, which I think with Dan on this recently. So he gave me the latest information. It's 35 companies who expect to be in production by the end of 2023. So, this is a big step, right? There's a lot of companies out there. They have APIs. They've implemented mostly for carrier Ethernet today. Obviously, we know there's a big potential for internet access and other services going forward. So just, first come to Danielle, ask you, what do you think is, now that we're at that position, what do you think we can do to take more advantage, or what would your expectation be in terms of the Sonata APIs and trying to exploit those going forward?
Well, first of all, I think that this great exponential growth that we have seen also in the slides before shown by Pascal is also due to the pandemic. The importance of the digital transformation, the importance of the core connectivity service as universal services between consumers and enterprises are definitely convinced even the most skeptical that this is something that we all must do. In the case of Sparkle, it's not just a matter of better together, but it's a matter of being impossible to do alone. If you see our traditional role, a wholesale provider, of course, our biggest asset is our network. We have more than 600,000 kilometers of fiber optics spread all over the world. But on the contrary, we don't have any access network. If you take out Italy, of course, that is another story. So for us, implementing Sonata, it was a matter of existential decision. And that's why we were one of the first to implement and one of the first to certify. But definitely, so far, Sonata has been perceived just to interconnect at a business layer between peers. So if Sparkle needs to buy connectivity or Sparkle wants to sell connectivity to somebody, Sonata has been the perfect framework to this kind of service automation. There is much more. If we go back to the slide where Pascal was depicting the retail service providers with all the layers and all these other subjects, we are here at the verge of the automation of vertical partnerships. We are already discussing how to interact with the SASE provider, SD-WAN providers using APIs. Yes. It's not just anymore a matter of buying an internet access or a carrier Ethernet. There is much more. There is IoT. There is the movement towards a machine-driven business networking. So far, we have analyzed the use of Cantata and Sonata APIs where there are humans behind the computers. When we need to interconnect an office or a home user. But in reality, in some of the work groups in MEF, we are already discussing of when there will be devices that will need to instantiate this kind of services. And therefore, Sonata is becoming critical for all this east-west, but enlarged set of automation capabilities.
Yeah, and really the heavy lifting has already been done by these 35 providers, or is being done and will be complete, and even the 50 within a short time. So, you know, there's something to be taken advantage of there. You know, having actually put the APIs in place, you know, adding additional partners or suppliers or buyers is not going to take as much effort. So, Laurent, what do you think about that in terms of the future?
Yeah.
For the,
I think we are really at a turning point, and we in Orange, especially on the wholesale side, we've decided to implement the Sonata APIs, and for us it's a key, very important evolution, which was driven by the business. So it's not at all. It was not a technical project. It was really driven by the business. And what it is about, it's about creating a new channel, actually. It's really a new channel to some extent, because we were used to provide the services in a more traditional way, using a portal, but using a lot of human interactions before. And now we provide another way, which should be considered as a new channel. And I think it paves the way for new opportunities. Of course, we are very focused today on the local loop. And our local loop is very important. It has a lot of value, and I think it's good that we start this way. But of course, it opens also other opportunities for other services, more software-oriented services, as you mentioned SASE and so on. I also mentioned SASE because also it's part of the ecosystem, and we had this partnership also with Fortinet. But I think what it is about is changing the way we deliver the service in a much more online driven, real-time, and seamless way.
Yeah, the APIs will allow you to do that. Like you can remove the human factor a lot in terms of that. So Mirko, what would you like to add anything to that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you said, we're a great point, and we can leverage, the industry can leverage the work done by the early adopters, because I think it's been challenging to implement from scratch APIs and automate across multiple carriers. And maybe seeing the glass half full here, I think we really need to get acceleration into adoption. I look at what we do as a business. We deliver global networks. I was thinking about what Frank said earlier about the delivery of your Siemens SD-WAN solution. So 5 years. I'm sure a lot of it was commercial negotiation, but what if we can turn reduce the time scales to deliver networks of that kind to, I don't know, half the time of that we have today. And I look at, we have probably around 300 connectivity suppliers across the world that probably buy 80% of our connectivity needs from 20% of those. But still, when I need to deliver a global wide network, I have to rely on a lot of partners. Having the ability to deliver services across, I don't know, 10, 20% of those with full automation is not sufficient to enable a faster delivery. So we need to accelerate adoption to really reap the benefits of it.
I think we have a question on that a little bit later. What are the things we need to do? Because obviously you're going from this 50 top to the 2.
I think the other thing, sorry, maybe to add on this, we're seeing a shift from Ethernet to Internet access. And I think the automation of the underlay for Internet access will be critical, especially for SD-WAN. If you can crack that problem, then it will really enable us to become more flexible. Because if you look at SD-WAN, it's really an over-the-top solution. You just need an internet layer at the bottom.
You understand the power of these APIs by listening to the different perspectives about service providers. Interesting, Laurent was mentioning it as a channel. So it's basically seller-oriented. On my side, I look equally at the selling and at the buying part. If you sell via API, there must be somebody that wants to buy via API. And for us, the buyer part is as important as the seller part. Because as I said, we are a kind of transit providers. So we rely a lot on access providers that are buying from us and us buying from access providers. So internet is really one of the key points. Automating that is key both for the selling part and from the buying part.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a supply chain, right? That's what we're saying. So you got to look at the whole thing and connect it all up so that you can have those automation.
And at the end, it's only one part of the bigger business automation. I mean, we can definitely talk about settlement, DLT, stuff like that.
And Tom, so you're kind of sitting there between the enterprise and the providers and the suppliers of those providers. What do you think are some of the main considerations within the digital transformation that a provider needs to make?
Yeah, if you think about as a service provider to your customers, a lot of the focus on the APIs has been on the connectivity, the underlay. And, credit awesome work that's gone on in the MEF, awesome work going on in the SD-WAN. And I'm really excited, though, about those next generation of services. That's just the plumbing of what we want to be able to sell to your customers. And so we really need to sanction, as Pascal took us through, the MEF sanctioned. So they're not, and I'm going to say the word incorrectly, so we've got the MEF provided APIs and then the MEF sanctioned APIs. I'm really excited about that initiative because I can't have one interface for connectivity, another interface for voice, another interface for IoT. It needs to all come as one order from your customer, one quote, one order, one service lifecycle from your customer into the operator. So I'm excited and looking forward to contributing, participating in the evolution of those APIs and seeing the number of services really growing.
So a single set of APIs that cover the processes you need to coordinate with your partners and with your customers.
Absolutely.
Just going back a little bit, Sparkle and Orange and Colt have all implemented Sonata, and all, you came through the pain of that process. So what sort of lessons did you learn, and what could you share with the audience in terms of the process? And, looking at that then going forward, what do you think we can do to improve it, or what have we done to improve it, I think, as well? I think there's been a lot of work at MEF recently in terms of tools and supports that we've put in place. How would your life have been if we had those tools and supports in place when you were implementing? That's another way.
Better, yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there has been, maybe I can pick this question. There's been a lot of groundwork done to start, and I mean, to be honest, we didn't have any manual at that time. So if you had a manual at that time, would have been easier. But a lot of great work has been done, in particular by the CBC, to make tools available for a faster onboarding and avoid repeating the same longer learning paths that we have gone through. I think the other challenge that we found is not so much technical, but more about aligning service definitions. If you look at the difference today between providers, when we engage for an API integration activity, first thing you need to agree is how do you actually sell, even if it's Ethernet service, the definition is slightly different. Especially, it tends to be different on the commercial side, how we sell it, the pricing. If I want to buy from, let's say, TI Sparkle Ethernet and then incorporate it in my service, I need to be able to take the same, harmonize to the same level of commercial offering to my end customers. And that means we need to agree on how we buy and sell to each other. That's been the other challenge. I don't know if that can be solved. To some extent, it's part of the differentiations that we have between each other. But I think certainly there are some elements that we will probably align naturally to a more common definition as more we move into.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people, to understand that layering. You've got this kind of core APIs that are plugging together, but they're like a pipe. But whatever the liquid is that you're going to put through the pipe can be different,
Yeah.
And then you've got to make sure pairwise that the that the two parties know what liquid is going to come down the pipe. That's there. Would you like to add anything to that, Daniela?
Well, yeah, I totally agree with Mirko. The biggest effort spent was to understand exactly what was in the service catalog of the correspondent party when we wanted to start an integration process. Which are the components of the service, how we call them, if elements are mandatory on the supply chain of one of the two parties and not mandatory or not even present at all in the other side. So those things took months in order to be addressed. Also because, I mean, we were really on a kind of greenfield implementation. And I believe most of us had also to interact with their own respective BSS supplier, for which it was also greenfield. Yeah, so the level of complexity is actually doubling. It's not just a matter of the service provider, but also the parties that is developing your internal stack. At least this was the case for Sparkle. I believe that today there is, number one, a lot of great experience that has been matured by the mutual IT teams, and also the glue that the CBC has brought into this kind of discussing and bringing up these pain points helps a lot to clarify the misunderstandings and to take up the gray areas. Last but not least, I think that the new services provided by MEF for testing, it's a great tool because it allows to have a kind of predefined configuration for each service provider. So if I want to integrate with Colt and Colt is using the testing service, I can check before actually starting the implementation project what is there, what is needed, and then study on the back end.
Yeah, and you can do that independently.
Exactly. I don't need to engage Mirko's team and to waste his time. I can engage when I am relationally ready to start the real work. And I believe that this will compress and compress, hopefully to get to few weeks, the real integration.
And Laurent, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? Thank you.
I think it's really about how we can simplify the process. And I remember a time where I was working very closely with a large US operator, and I could see the interaction and the process between Orange working globally in the US together with that operator. At the time, it was years ago, there was no APIs, and I can tell you it was quite a challenge. It took a lot of time to agree on many things. We used an Excel file to bring all the information, exchanged several times, and at some point in time, we finally converged, and we could start the delivery process. So I think thanks to APIs, now we can move to a much more lean and very simple. Or it's not at all a technical project. It's driven by the business, and then it's an opportunity to transform yourself.
Yes, yeah. And you're right, like what we call them APIs, but it's really the processes and the rules of engagement that are most critical. I think that's what MEF really does a good job on. And actually that brings me to my next question, which is, MEF has collaborated with the TM Forum and built the LSO APIs out of the TM Forum based APIs. How would you like to see that TMF and MEF relationship evolve as companies invest in the LSO APIs? So I'll pass that one back to you, Laurent.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a story of a very successful collaboration between the two organizations. I would like to mention it because it's not so often that we see two standard organizations working very closely together to come up at the end with a product which can be rolled out in the industry and we can really change the game. I think both organizations really complement each other. very well. TM4M came with a set of artifacts and architecture principles and also some good patterns, but MEF was also at the same time very good because they knew the process very well. They knew also the data that had to be exchanged, and working together, they managed, the two organizations managed to derive those APIs. It cannot be done just by MEF, couldn't be done just by TM4M. I think it's a quite successful story. It took time. At the beginning, I remember it was not so easy to work together, but I think with goodwill of all the people involved, you managed to do it, and I really think it's quite an important milestone in the industry. Moving forward, I think both MEF and TM4M have invented a way to extend those principles. LSO is a general schema, which is very important, which gives the right abstraction that we can extend. We can introduce new payloads in LSO, and we can derive from that new collaboration frameworks. And I'm sure that what you've started to do together with TM4M can be extended to many other topics, and not only on fixed line topics, but also, as we said, on SD-WAN and other services, software services, but also on mobile services. When we talk about 5G slicing, for instance, we will need this kind of capability, and we will need to create the right collaboration. So I think pretty sure that we need to see how we can leverage this collaboration, which is very meaningful and relevant for the industry.
Tap the base of both memberships. Yeah. Tom, would you like to add anything to that?
I'd love to, because I think there's great synergies between TMF, MEF, and we should extend it to other organizations as well, like 3GPP. So TMF has often spoken about catalog-driven operations. I've heard, MEF, LSO, brilliant, value-added contribution to the industry. But then how do we take that API, describe those catalog entities, and to drive the rest of our operations? Integrate to field service management, integrate through, say, the Presto or southbound Adiago APIs into the network. So I really think there's a lot of good value and a lot of good work that TMF has done, really driving the business flows from that data. And then beyond that, they're doing a lot of great work in their open digital architecture, Zero Touch Partnership, I think is the name of the program. And I think there's a lot of, again, great synergies between that and the incremental service models that we need to define within the MEF API. So if we can partnership or build a partnership with TMF in that Zero Touch Partnership program, and ensure that as they're defining new relationships, and try to have good synergies between our service models and then those APIs.
Thanks, Tom. Anything to add, Mirko? Do you have anything to add to that?
I think the role of standard bodies is a really important one. I mean, just repeating what has been said, but reinforcing it, I think has been a success story, the discussion between TMF and MEF on aligning on this. But if I reflect on what happened, I think it needed the personal belief of everybody around the table here to actually make it happen in that manner. If it didn't happen in that way, making compatibility part of the standard would have not been a good result. And I think we need to be clear that there has to be a discussion between the standard bodies about boundaries. What is the focus? As soon as we have overlaps, and it has happened in the past, I'm not talking about MEF, but has happened quite often that standard bodies have competed for the definition of the same things, and that's not good for the industry. It creates confusion, it creates overhead for everybody involved. So I think we need to maintain that dialogue open and be clear about what the boundaries are, who's working on what. There is so many things we need to collectively tackle, so I don't think there is an issue with the amount of work. And so that's, to me, that's what's important moving forward.
Thank you. Thanks. So, Tom, just back to you. ServiceNow sits within a large percentage of the enterprise, and you know the other set of APIs that we talk about are Cantata and Allegro, which is between the enterprise and the service provider. They're designed to automate the business and operational functions there. You know, can you give us your sort of perspective on the enterprise customers and APIs and standardization there as well?
Absolutely. So the goal of the APIs has to be simplification of those business operations. So if we can utilize those APIs, and I iterated earlier the intent, we can't expose the entire layer 2 service model to the customers. Not to all customers. Some customers will demand it, but the majority, we need to abstract it, as we said, to that SLA layer. I think that's going to give us the agility, provide that interface, provide an easy way for your customers to do business with you, and then you deal with the complexity behind it through your on-prem interfaces and through your complex network of partnerships. You're going to manage that partnership, and your goal has to be to hide the abstraction, hide the complexity from your customers, so it's easy for you to do business, or for them to do business with you.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Just, I think we're coming to the very end now of our time. So if I could just go around each one of you and ask you, you know, in your closing thoughts, what would your recommendations be, you know, in terms of to others who are implementing their digital transformation through the NADA APIs and other aspects of digital transformation? Start with Daniela, maybe. Go this way.
Well, recommendation to the others. Come and talk to us, first of all, not because we are the savvy ones, but because we were passing through those pain points, and therefore who was solving some problem before can be, you know, helping and suggesting.
One of our senior architects, he was very involved in MEF working group, also in TM Forum, and he was also the principal architect to support our business unit, international carrier, to implement Sonata. And thanks to that, I think we managed to implement it in a matter of just a few months. But it was much simpler because we were part of the game from the beginning. So please join us, and you will become maybe a senior expert like Ludovic, who is now an expert in polymorphic APIs. Polymorphic is important, very important, because he told me that if I use the word polymorphic, he will owe me a beer.
Yeah, so maybe two recommendations. One is, I mean, this is not a question about adopting APIs. So it's not a technical question. It's about business changes. And so anybody around the table here that is approaching this, it is a business transformation. You need to be prepared for change. It's not about, I think Laurent touched on it, it's not about implementing an API. That's the easiest part, even though, again, it was difficult because we didn't have a manual, but changing the process behind is even more complicated. So you need to be prepared for that. Yeah, I mean, the other recommendation is just jump into it. I think there is still, we can see it in discussions, providers are thinking, is there a business case for me to do it? I think you need to invest into it, jump into it. We are well past that point in Colt. It's not a question about is it going to pay back, more about it's a must. It has to be done in this way. So I think the industry expects us, customers are expecting us to behave in this, to operate in this manner.
Yeah, I think we've seen that sea change actually.
Yeah, don't delay adoption.
The last 9 months, I think definitely there's a sea change. Now we're doing it. How do we do it, and what's the mechanism to do it? Hey, Tom, do you want to give your some last?
Yeah, last quick points. I think you got to start off really looking internally. How are you changing your business to be agile, be flexible? So really adhering to a catalog-driven model based on the MEF service models that we've defined. You have to automate them, but you have to take advantage of those models internally. Become a catalog-driven operation. Use that as a heart of your business. Look at your ecosystem. That's sort of the second angle. Encourage, strongly encourage your partners to adopt and adhere to those APIs. I was part of some of those conversations yesterday. It's brilliant to see. I won't mention Aidan's name, but I really respected what he's doing there. And then finally, always be thinking about your customer. Always be thinking about how you can simplify the experience of your customer, make it easy for them to do business with you, so that they'll be incented. They'll want to do business with you.
Thanks a million. I'd like to thank the panel as well. I think it was a good discussion we had here. So.
Thank you, Michael.